One of the challenges that we run into is that the answer isn't as simplified as it presents itself in the market, right? I mean, there's broad brushstrokes that talks about 30% productivity across your entire workforces. And when you really get down into details, it's very use case specific.
Welcome to another episode of Data Strategy Unraveled. I'm your host, Kendra Reed, Principal Data and GenAI Strategy Specialist here at AWS. And today we're going to be talking about Amazon Q, specifically Q Business. Now, a few weeks back, we did a video around generative BI with QuickSight Q, but today we want to talk about another avenue of that entire stack there with the Q for Business. And to help us with this, I have a colleague of mine here, Sean. Hey, Sean, how you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for the invite to join the session.
Hey, happy to have you here. Before we get into it, how about just tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're joining us from?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm based in San Diego, California, and I lead an Amazon Q customer success team at AWS. We focus a lot on helping customers, get Q business into their environment so that their workforce can use it and fine tune it to make sure that it's, providing the value that our customers expect from it.
Thanks. Yeah, this Q business is really neat. So just to kind of start off here, how about you give us kind of an overview of, the Q services, specifically with, Q business, and kind of where does this actually fit when it comes to all the different generative AI services that we're offering within AWS?
Yeah, absolutely. A great place to start. And it's a very different type of service, right? That a lot of people across the globe are getting used to using. And before I jump into the Q services specifically, I think it'd be useful for me to kind of take a step back and talk a little bit about how AWS in general thinks about our stack of generative AI services and where Q fits into it. So the way that we often talk about it is there's three layers to it. And the bottom layer, you have customers that are really looking to build foundation models. And these are customers with a lot of data, deep technical knowledge in data science and artificial intelligence. And they use products that we have from Annapurna Labs like Trainium and Inferentia to be able to train these large models with billions of parameters. And so in the second layer, we often call it the middle layer. These are for companies that aren't looking or maybe don't have the expertise or necessarily the need because it's very expensive to build your own foundation models, but use existing foundation models from companies like Anthropic or Meta or Mistral or Stability, where you can use a technique called retrieval augmented generation or RAG to be able to put your own data on top of an existing model. And we have services called SageMaker and Bedrock that are really custom built and custom designed for companies to do that. In the top layer, you have more configurable services where we have pre-trained models on very specific tasks, such as personalization or transcription. Those are services called AWS Personalize or Transcribe. And that's really where the Q suite of services sit. We have Q Developer that we've pre-trained to really understand the entire software development lifecycle. You have Q and QuickSight, which you've spoken about in previously, where you can use natural language to get data insights. Q and Connect for customer service representatives to use live with customers, and then really Q Business, which is what we're here to talk a lot more about today. And so Q Business is really, you can think about it as your personal assistant at work. It's designed to really understand the data that you have access to uniquely, help you summarize that data and take action across a lot of different varieties of workflows. And that's really where my team specifically engages with customers.
Okay. Thanks for providing that detail, kind of where this fits in an overall stack there. So you talk a little bit about, what Q does and how it helps. So, generative AI has a lot of promise when it comes to it, right? Everyone's thinking about how can they improve their businesses, especially when it comes to productivity with Amazon was not just Amazon Q, but just in general with generative AI. But when it comes to Q specifically, how can you measure the impact of it when it comes to your business? I think that's a question that a lot of companies have today is like, if I invest in this, what is my return? How can I actually understand what my return would be?
Yeah, I struggle to think of a customer executive that doesn't have that on their mind, especially
Yeah.
as the board of directors have seen reports from Gartner and McKinsey and a lot that talks about the promises of productivity as it relates to generative AI. And one of the challenges that we run into is that the answer isn't as simplified as it presents itself in the market, right? I mean, there's broad brushstrokes that talks about 30% productivity across your entire workforces. And when you really get down into details, it's very use case specific. And so the way that we guide customers to think about productivity is you have to look at different parts of your business. And we'll get into more details on this, but I would, again, kind of back to this kind of three-tiered model. We want to look at it from the business perspective, from the team perspective, and then from the individual perspective. As a business, there's absolutely opportunity broadly to have significant impact on productivity. Some tasks are going to be automated entirely using generative AI and services like Q in Business. Some are going to be helped, maybe in the single digit percentages. But overall, as a business, you want to think about, what is your labor force doing and what is your output relative to your labor force. And so you're going to have P&L metrics really kind of at the top part of your business or in your line of business as you think about that. And then from a team perspective, what does the team health and the team quality and the team productivity look like? So, for example, if you have a product development team that's maybe focused in financial services or healthcare or insurance, that puts together the different offerings that you have, how are you using generative AI to either accelerate your time to market, produce better quality, or back to productivity? All three of those are really kind of core measurements that you want to think about. And then from an individual perspective, generative AI certainly offers individuals to be able to do more, but are they doing less of the things that they don't want to do, and are they still able to play in that creative space that helps us be energized at work? And so we encourage customers to think about employee sentiment as they're using these tools. Do I feel more productive? Am I enjoying the tasks that I get to focus more time on? Am I appreciating the fact that I'm maybe doing less of the tasks that are repetitive and things
Mm.
like that? And so again, kind of back to the business P&L, the team health, and then the individual sentiment and satisfaction. That's where we want to encourage people to take a look at.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense there. And so what can, businesses do to start to think about how they can improve their organization's capabilities around that productivity aspect that you mentioned there?
Yeah, yeah, it's back to the productivity question in a lot of
Yeah.
different ways. Boards want it and they want it now, right?
Yeah.
Because there's such great promise. But the reality is this is a massive shift and a massive transformation in terms of how people work, how workflows are being transformed. And so we really want to be programmatic and methodical in terms of picking the right use cases to get started with the right areas of the business and frankly, the right individuals as we think about their capacity to change and their capacity to learn to integrate differently with different technologies. And how we interface as humans is not entirely different, but how we interface with artificial intelligence needs to be a lot more detailed, a lot more specific. So there's a lot of learning that goes into that. And what we find is there's a few different common use cases that are great places just to get started. And what I coach customers is to think about is, start with areas of the business where you understand how people are spending their time. Classically, for businesses that have customer service centers, and most companies have this, IT support centers. There's repetitive tasks you understand and have a lot of metrics around the flow of information and productivity already that you can then measure a dynamic difference on. So call centers and IT support centers are a great place to start just to get something like Q Business embedded in your business, and you can go from there. A couple different places that we've seen customers start are things like HR with onboarding and helping learn more about the company at a self-paced rate, as well as things like helping with open enrollment or requesting time off, or a lot of the repetitive Q&A that tends to occur at companies, so that you're not using people's time to do that, but using artificial intelligence. And then the final use case I would suggest is, like in manufacturing, we're seeing a lot of customers adopt Q Business to help with things like equipment maintenance, or fixing equipment and things like that, to be able to provide step-by-step instructions on how to do something quickly. And we're seeing a lot of success with that.
Okay. Okay. And is there any specific customers that that have kind of went on that journey?
Yeah, a great example is Kemper Insurance. They were one of the first adopters of Q for Business as we, made it into general availability. And in their contact centers, they're seeing 29% productivity improvement for their customer service representatives live on phone calls with their customers, helping give them guidance. Now, one thing to note is that this is something as you adopt or as a customers adopt Q Business in their business, you shouldn't expect something like 29% or even 50% or 16% right away. It's something that progressively increases, and that's a trend that we've seen across a lot of customers. So as you get started, expect maybe even things take a little bit longer at the start as people get used to interfacing with this new way of working. But then over time, managing the change and the productivity improvement should come.
Okay. And a lot of this, what you're talking about here, really goes back to kind of what we do within this channel, right? Talking about the modern data strategy approach, right? And the data strategy that is required in order to do things like this, right? Having that data foundation in place in order to be able to have the
Mm.
capabilities to leverage generative AI, Amazon Q, and get that business value from it. What would you say is the most important dimensions when it comes to data strategy in order to really take the full advantage of Q and its impact that it can have?
Yeah, so there's a couple. You said the most important one. So if I had to pick, I would say data quality is a significant challenge. At a simplistic level, it makes sense, right? If you have good input, you're much more likely to get good output. And what we've seen is we've integrated Q Business with a number of different customers. As you have systems, and Q has a number of different data connectors that we use to be able to integrate with systems like Jira and Confluence and ServiceNow and SharePoint and things like that to be able to pull data in and index it. And as we look across different systems, if similar data or similar answers exist in different systems, it can be challenging to reconcile those. And we've even had instances where customers expected certain answers to the questions, only to look back and realize that their systems actually never had this in the first place to answer them. And so it can be challenging to really understand your data landscape and the quality that you have. It's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be 100%. So, but the more that you can think about version control and consistency and quality going in, you're going to get better output. So data quality is the first thing that I would talk about if I had to pick one. If I didn't have to pick one, if I could pick a couple more, I would say data security is really critical. With generative AI and putting Q Business on top of your entire corpus of knowledge in your enterprise, you really need to understand governance and compliance and security to be able to make sure that people are getting access to data and knowledge that they're supposed to have access to. So that's a really core and critical piece of Q Business that we spend a lot of time working with customers to making sure that we're tightening up security so people get answers that are super helpful for them, but only relevant to the parts of their business they should have knowledge around.
Mhm.
And then a couple other things that I would call out is, legacy systems integration, where you have data tied up a lot of times in mainframes or other kind of abstract custom-built systems can be difficult to tap into that you want to think about. And then the final thing is, we talk a lot about technology and technical hurdles, but there's also non-technical hurdles, and that's really a part of data strategy too, is how comfortable are people working with data. We mentioned this a little bit earlier in this talk of just building skills. Really, we found, and I would say anecdotally, it takes people between 3 and 6 months of real day-to-day focus to get good at how do you interface through natural language with these systems. And so that's something that we really need to focus on too, as we think about implementing a data strategy that's really friendly to optimize the benefits that generative AI offers.
Yeah, that's a great point there. Actually, all of this that you just mentioned, the security, the compliance piece. We just had a video with Dia Nguyen on responsible AI that kind of
Mm.
ties into that. But then, like you said, knowing how to ask the question, that data literacy, right? Being able to upskill your employees to be able to do that is really critical as well. So this is really great information. And we'll be sure to provide a lot of links in the description below so that our viewers can learn more about it. But how would you say is the best way for a lot of our customers to get started in leveraging Amazon Q for Business?
Yeah, beautiful question. And there is a lot of information out there on AWS's website around Q Business. Q Business is something that really it does take some technical and non-technical planning around. We have AWS prescriptive guidance. We often call that APG. If you search Amazon prescriptive guidance, there's a number of articles that have been published. My team is in the process of publishing kind of self-guided, self-service steps to be able to launch Q Business and configure connectors, set up, toxicity guardrails and security guardrails and topic guardrails and things like that for Q Business. And so I would encourage you to look there first. If you're a business that has an account team and enterprise support and things like that, that's absolutely a great channel to be able to help ask questions and get started with Q as well.
Okay. Okay. And again, we'll be sure to put a lot of that Sean just mentioned in the description below. But Sean, thank you so much for taking the time. I know it's very busy times for you. In the age of generative AI, everybody wants your time. So definitely thank you for taking the time to provide some insight of what Q Business is, and how it can help a lot of companies. We hope to have you back, soon again as you continue to mature that product and provide more insights on how it can be leveraged. And for our viewers, thank you again for watching. Be sure to check the links below and be on the lookout for our next data strategy and Unravel episode. Thank you.